Greetings guys, gals, non-binary pals, and welcome back to another video. I hope that you are well and I hope that you are fighting because there's a lot to be fighting for. As usual, there'll be a link in the description to the page on my website with a bunch of petitions, donations, emails to send to MPs, etc, etc. Now, as you probably all know and have an opinion on, there is currently a lot of discourse around Billie Eilish and queerbaiting. And this is something that me and Kat talk about a lot, like in general with queerbaiting and celebrities, and it's something that we talk about a lot. It is something that I have a big opinion on, and it is something that I wanted to sit down and talk about today, as I think it is quite a big and important discussion to have, and I think something that we all need to talk about. And so that is what we are going to be doing today. This is something that I have a stance on that you may not agree with, but I hope that you hear me out and let me know your thoughts and your opinions about the whole situation, and if I'm missing any information, let me know. I just want to have this conversation, and yeah, so that is what we are going to talk about today. Before we start, I think it is important to give the definition of what queerbaiting is. Queerbaiting is a marketing technique for fiction and entertainment in which creators hint at but do not explicitly depict same-sex romance or other LGBTQ+ representation. And this is something that Billie Eilish has recently come under fire for her video for Lost Cause, which depicts her and a bunch of girls having fun, partying, dancing, kind of touching and being a little bit physical and intimate with one another, which was then followed by an Instagram post with the caption, "I love girls," which came a little bit after she started getting a little bit of heat for queerbaiting with her video. Now, a lot of people are calling this queerbaiting as they believe that Billie Eilish is straight because she said so once in an interview when she was like 17, I think, or because she hasn't explicitly come out and said otherwise. And I think that this in itself is an issue. We don't know Billie Eilish's sexuality. We have been saying all Pride Month that you do not owe anyone a coming out. You don't have to come out to anyone. You don't have to have a label. You don't have to have it all figured out in order to express your sexuality. Billie Eilish is 19 years old. What she said in an interview 2 years ago about her sexuality may not reflect how she feels now. A lot of you who are watching have probably gone through a phase in your life, particularly when you were younger, where you thought you were straight or you wished you were straight and pretended you were straight because it wasn't something that you were ready to confront and deal with and not something that you were ready to tell people about or explore. And I don't know why we would assume any differently for Billie just because she's a celebrity or a public figure. So we don't know her sexuality. And she released this video where she is with women in a way that isn't explicitly sexual. It could be viewed that way. I understand how it could be viewed that way, but it isn't explicitly sexual. And even if that is how it is meant to be interpreted, we don't have the right to rule out the fact that she is queer. We don't know if she is queer or not. And she does not have to tell us that. She does not owe that to us. We do not need that information. That is not something that she owes to anyone. She is 19 years old. She may be exploring her sexuality. She may feel as though she is queer, but isn't ready to have a label to explicitly say who she is because she isn't 100% ready to do so. I don't use a label. I'm comfortable with the term queer. But a lot of people aren't. A lot of people feel as though they need a specific label for themselves. A lot of people feel confused and lost when they're like, I like women. I like men. I don't like men. I do like women. I don't like, and it's a big process. A lot of us struggle with our sexuality. I get a lot of DMs from people saying that they don't know. They're confused. They don't know if they feel sexually attracted or just romantically attracted to someone. They don't know if it's platonic attraction. They don't know what it is. And that is no different for celebrities or for people in the spotlight of any sort. This is a human experience. This is something that so many people go through. Billie just happens to have a public platform and she wants to express herself. That's always been what she's done with her art. She always expresses herself. She always expresses who she is and how she's feeling. And that is her whole thing. That's what she does. She openly talks about her mental health and her depression and everything that she is going through. And she does that openly in order to help validate other people who may also be going through those things. And I don't know why people are viewing this as something that is so different. I personally don't believe this is harmful to the queer community because I don't see it as queerbaiting. This video does not exist to gain capital off of homophobic people, off of conservatives, which is what queerbaiting is. She's not made this in order to have a queer audience while keeping a conservative audience. That is not the purpose. That has never been her purpose. Her art does not particularly appeal to homophobic or conservative people. As far as I'm aware, that is not her target demographic. She's been openly vocal about equality and LGBTQ+ rights in the past. She has spoken about this. This is not something that she is trying to appeal to people with opposing views. I think what people are getting confused with and what people may think it is fetishizing, which would be using women love women relationships for the male gaze to sexualize lesbianism without explicitly being queer herself in order to gain views from people who think that it's like hot or like to fetishize women loving women. And I think that a lot of people do think that it's that and are wrongly calling it queerbaiting, which once again, I don't agree with. This doesn't feel like it was made for the male gaze. Her song is not pronoun. There are no pronouns used in this song. You don't know the gender that she is speaking about in this song. You don't know who this song was written for or what it's about. And there's no men in the video getting involved or watching. This is purely all women. And I think that the video was also made for women. This video was not made with the intention of the male gaze, and it was not made with the intention of a conservative audience. At least in my honest opinion and beliefs. This doesn't feel like it needs to be as big of an issue as it is. She is a teenager exploring her sexuality, and she's doing it in a public audience, which is fucking terrifying. She's never really had privacy. She has been like a celebrity since she was 15. She's been doing this for a really fucking long time. And we shouldn't have these expectations of her so different to how we have them for other people her age. She's still a fucking teenager. She is a person. She's barely an adult. And so many people are coming at her with so much negativity and almost calling her like homophobic and saying that it's so problematic that she is doing this. When if she is queer and is closeted, all this is doing would be forcing her further back into the closet. If this was her way of trying to start her journey in self-acceptance and coming out, I personally would feel pushed back in. I would not want to be a part of that community. I would not feel comfortable coming out to my audience after going through this, especially as Billie is someone who has openly talked about her mental health. She has so many songs talking about like wanting to die. And although, no, that is not our responsibility, that is not her listeners' responsibility to take care of that, I think having basic human sympathy and empathy should be enough for you to not attack a teenager for exploring her sexuality openly. I'm saying all of this, by the way, as I'm not a fan. I have barely listened to any of Billie Eilish's music. I don't really know any of it. I've listened to a few songs. I've playlisted a couple. I don't know her music very well. I am coming from sort of a neutral standpoint of not really knowing her or her music. This is just from like a bit of research that I have done and songs that I have looked into and lyrics that I've looked at and talking to Kat, who does listen to her music. The other thing a lot of people say they're upset about, and like a main thing that people seem to be upset about, is her boyfriend, which is unconfirmed, by the way. We don't know if this is her actual boyfriend. There is no confirmation that they are actually dating. They've just been seen together a few times. And that is a 30-year-old man who has said some really problematic and awful things in his past that have been homophobic and racist. So people then, of course, are saying Billie is a bad person for dating this man who is a bad person. So because her boyfriend is homophobic and racist, that means she's homophobic and racist. And since he's homophobic and she's posting a queer video, that means that she is not actually queer. She's queerbaiting, she is homophobic, and she's using a queer relationship and a queer video in order to gain a queer audience and keep queer audience on her side and not leave because of her homophobic boyfriend. And I have a few things to say about this. Firstly, as I would like to point out once again, Billie is 19. This man is 30. And you want to sit here and blame her? You want to sit here and get mad at her for dating a 30-year-old man? She's barely an adult. And you're gonna sit here and say that that's not a huge power disparity? Just because she's an adult doesn't mean she's immune to being like manipulated and groomed by an older man. We don't know how long he's known her for. For all we know, he's known her since she was a minor. Billie has openly said that she is easily manipulated and taken advantage of. She had a song recently, like only like a month or two back, that was all about that. It was all about being taken advantage of by people in the industry. Barely anyone talked about it. This song has come under huge fire, but I didn't see that much sympathy and empathy coming out towards her when she literally made a whole song about being taken advantage of and abused by people in the industry. That should have been taken way more seriously. She's openly spoken about how easy it is for people to take advantage of her. She's been in this industry since she was really young. The industry is terrible. There are so many bad people in the music industry. It's extremely male dominated, and a lot of them are really awful, sleazy men who can take advantage of young women and do take advantage of young women. We don't know anything about this man. We don't know anything about their relationship. He is 30. She is 19. Why are we victim blaming? Why are we victim blaming? Why are we making Billie the bad guy in this situation? Surely the 30-year-old man who is homophobic should be the target here. The 30-year-old man who is dating a 19-year-old, like a barely adult. He is 30. Why is no one concerned about that? Why are people not more upset about that? Why are we back on blaming women? Why are we back on blaming women for the actions of men? Also, even regardless of that, even if we take out his age and we just focus on the homophobic tweets, I am sick and tired of this discourse of women dating conservative or homophobic men automatically mean that that woman is a bad person or that woman is homophobic or racist because of who she is dating. I understand where you are coming from. I actively would not make the decision to date someone who is homophobic or racist. I wouldn't do that. That's not something that aligns with my morals. Obviously, as a queer person, why would I date someone who is homophobic? However, in the same breath, you talk about how hard it is to leave an abusive relationship. We talk about abusive relationships and how abusers obviously are terrible people. They actively harm their partners, whether that be physically, emotionally, sexually, whatever. They cause harm to their partners. They manipulate them, they hurt them, they make it so they don't feel like they can leave. This is coming from someone who was in an abusive relationship for 2.5 years. My partner was homophobic and racist and sexist. He was a terrible, terrible person. I would never associate myself with someone like that. But yet I was in a relationship with him for 2.5 years because I felt as though I couldn't leave, because I was taken advantage of, because I was manipulated. And seeing so much online saying that if you date a homophobic person, you're a bad person, that is so invalidating. That makes me feel so gross and guilty and as though I was a bad person for staying in that relationship. It makes me feel invalid as a victim. It makes me feel like it was my fault and I am a bad person for being in that relationship and that I should have just left. It's not that easy. It's not that easy. And this, I'm sure, happens to so many other victims as well. Particularly queer people in relationships with homophobic people. You think that that relationship isn't going to be abusive? If you're a queer person and your partner is homophobic, you think that relationship isn't going to be abusive? There's got to be a lot of internalized misogyny in there. There is so much more to that. And I don't understand how people say, you're a bad person for dating a conservative. You're a bad person for dating a racist. You're a bad person when you don't know the full story. We obviously should not support or befriend racist, homophobic people. We should not associate with people with those beliefs. But sometimes it happens. And sometimes you aren't aware that that's who the person is until it's too late. This person that Billie is with made these tweets 10 years ago. We don't know if she knew that when they got together. We don't know what the situation is. We don't know how she found herself in this position. We don't know how she's doing in this relationship. We don't know anything. We don't know anything about any of it. And we do not have the right to know. We don't deserve to know. She doesn't owe us any explanation. She might not be ready to give an explanation. She might not feel comfortable to give an explanation. She might be in a really vulnerable position. She might not feel comfortable or safe. We don't know. She does not owe it to us. We need to stop reading into the situation in whatever way we feel we want to. You need to stop trying to understand situations that we don't have all the information of. This is not a priority. Honestly, I feel like we should be much more worried about her if she is in a relationship with a 30-year-old man. There is so much here and so many accusations coming from so many different places where we don't have all the right information to be making these assumptions and these accusations. I personally don't think there's anything wrong or harmful with exploring your sexuality on a public platform. I don't think there's anything wrong with giving representation of how you currently feel. Whether she realizes or decides that she is straight later or not doesn't have anything to do with it. She could be just openly exploring how she is currently feeling. We don't know. Queerbaiting is something that is being brought up a lot recently in so many different aspects, such as with Billie Eilish here, and it's also something that's brought up in things like K-pop all the time. And once again, I'd just like to bring attention to the fact that real people don't queerbait. Real people expressing themselves and how they're feeling is not queerbaiting. You can be queer without openly being queer. You can express your queerness through your art without explicitly telling people that you are queer. And also, you can exist and like be feminine or masculine or exist with queer stereotypes without being queer. It's not their fault if you perceive what they're doing as queer. You don't get to decide what is and isn't queer. Doing something that is stereotypically queer does not make it queer. If like a man is wearing makeup and a dress and nail polish, that doesn't necessarily make him queer. Things that are actually queerbaiting are like shows where they actively show two people of the same sex who like flirt, who have an ongoing thing that you are always certain that they are going to end up together and they never do. That's queerbaiting. If there's a story that implies that two people are together but never actually show that they are together, that is queerbaiting. People existing as themselves and exploring their sexuality or expressing their sexuality or expressing anything really is not queerbaiting. People can express themselves through their art however the fuck they want to. However they want to. It's not queerbaiting unless they are explicitly showing queerness without actually showing queerness. As in like tension between two people of the same sex that don't ever end up together. Some people don't feel safe or comfortable coming out. Some people want to express how they're feeling and express their queerness without having to tell you explicitly that they're queer, because that is not something that they themselves are ready to accept or something that they are ready to share. We don't know the full story, and it isn't fair to decide on other people's sexuality purely based on your thoughts and your beliefs. We don't know. Unless they explicitly tell you, we don't know. And even then, people's sexuality and labels can change and fluctuate as people figure themselves out and decide. A lot of people will label themselves as straight and realize they're a lesbian. A lot of people will label themselves as bisexual and realize that they're straight. A lot of people... We don't know. Sexuality is fluid. It can change as you grow and you figure yourself out more. Stop victim blaming people. Stop getting mad at people for expressing themselves. Let people live their lives. Let Billie explore her sexuality and figure out who she is, because we don't have enough information. And also, don't victim blame her for being in a relationship with a 30-year-old homophobe. Maybe we should be looking more into who the fuck he is and how this happened and be more concerned for her and her well-being. I think we're mad at the wrong person. We should be mad at her boyfriend, and also just like stop and think before we like jump to conclusions and decide that something is wrong without actually putting that much thought into it. If you disagree with what I've just said here, please comment below, let me know, because I am very intrigued. I haven't really understood this argument this whole time. It's something that's frustrated me and upset me a lot, particularly the stuff about victim blaming for like dating homophobes and stuff. That's something that I see a lot, and every time I see it, it's very triggering. And if it's something that you also find triggering, I'm really sorry. I understand. It's hard. It's shit, because you do feel like a bad person sometimes for feeling like you enabled that behavior and supported it, but it's hard to leave. And I understand that. And I'm really sorry if you've ever been in that position. And I think we need to stop this idea and stop sharing it the way that we do, because it's quite harmful. And I'd just like you to keep that in mind before you start talking about it and sharing tweets that say that, because I've seen a lot of TikToks, I've seen a lot of tweets, and it hurts me and many others, and I don't know if that's something that you have considered before thinking it or sharing it. So, those are my thoughts on the topic. This is where I'm at. I hope that I explained it well. I kind of went off a little bit, but I'm sure you get it. So, yeah. Thank you for coming along. I hope that you've learned something. I hope that this has helped explain it a little bit more. Like I said, I'd be interested to know your take, your opinion, your takeaway of this. Yeah. A massive thank you to my Kiwi Fruit and Kiwi Bird channel members whose names are up on the screen right now. And a massive thank you to my channel member of the day, Ellie. I love and appreciate you so, so much. Thank you so much for joining. If you would like to become a channel member, you can click the top link in the description or the little blue join button. You get my videos a day early, as well as 10% off my shop when I have things on my shop. You also, as a Kiwi Bird member, get little videos every now and then that don't make it into the main video. I hope this has helped clear the air about some of this. I hope this has helped educate some of you. I don't know. It's been a bit of a hard one to talk about. I didn't realize how difficult it would be to talk about. So I'm going to go lie down, I think. Yeah. So I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe. Keep fighting. I love you.